What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Guys, this video, I'm going to be going over the types of scenarios that I see on the water and types of scenarios that you should be looking for on the water to focus on catching bigger class fish in this pre-spawn time. Guys, water temps are going to be starting to rise as spring goes into full effect here. The groundhog didn't see a shadow, so that means we've got an early spring coming, and I'm very excited about that. Now, obviously, the scientific, let's say, reasonability slash, actual perception of spring is all up for debate depending on where you are. Here in Texas, it is definitely warming up. Water temps have increased around 6-7 degrees in the past week or two, so our water temps are starting to slowly climb back up. They never got really super cold this year, and I know a lot of the southern states around here did see a little bit of a hard freeze in some places, but the water temps really didn't drop super drastically and stay really low temperatures. So we're probably going to see a couple more cold fronts come in, but these fish are already thinking about bedding. Our bass over in the front tank here, he has noticed the photo change now that we're having longer days, and he's actually started fanning a bed. So it might actually be a she now that I think of it. Clark has been with us almost a full, actually probably more than a full year. And last year, one of the bass that was in there actually started laying eggs, which was really cool. And it happened around this time, early February. So biologically they're already getting ready to lay eggs. Think about that. Put on their spring weight, and then they're going to release their eggs and spawn. So the springtime is a magical time where you can catch the biggest fish of your life, not only with forward-facing sonar, which is kind of what I'm going to be basing mine off today, but don't leave. I'm going to be talking about all these techniques here and how you can use them even without forward-facing sonar. And we're going to be talking about the areas that the fish like to get in. We're going to be talking about different structure, and I've got a whole list of baits here that, aren't forward-facing sonar specific. It definitely helps if you have it, so you can locate these fish and target exactly where they're at, and it makes it a whole lot easier. And that's one of my things with forward facing sonar, guys. I love fishing with it. It's very useful to me because I only get maybe 1 day a week on the water, which might sound like I'm in this high place here that I get one day a week, but to me, I love fishing, guys. I love what I do here at my job. I get to talk with people all the time about fishing, and to me, it helps me as sort of like a therapy. I get out on the water, catch fish, and that's my main thing. I want to break it down really fast, and this is kind of how I break it down. And I have been on some mega bags with forward-facing sonar. Now, again, you don't need it, so this is going to be what you're looking for on side scan, what you're going to be looking for on lake maps, and some of my favorite baits to target these bigger class fish, these big females that are pushing up here in the pre-spawn. So, kicking it off, guys, I've kind of broken this down into 4 different types of areas that you should be looking for on your bodies of water. Kicking it off, guys, one of the first places fish go, especially in the pre-spawn, when the weather is going to be the most drastic, when we go from really cold to starting to warm up and maybe back down to cold. When you get those temperature shifts, guys, look out for ledges. A ledge, whether it's a bluff ledge, whether it's a submerged ledge, it all depends on where you're fishing. Obviously, here in Texas, we don't have a lot of very hard ledges on a lot of the Metroplex lakes where I'm at in DFW, but you go to like Possum Kingdom, you go to some of the West Texas lakes, you've got steep bluff walls on like PK and Whitney and and like Belton and stuff. So be on the lookout for easy high depth change areas like ledges. So if you take this example here, I hope you can all see it. I think you can. This ledge here, let's say it's about, it starts off, 4 foot under the water at the top, goes down around 10-15 feet. This can be a very high percentage area in the early spring, and this is one thing you want to look out for. So I've got my blue marker here. These are going to be fish. As fish move in the pre-spawn time, guys, a lot of the times they're going to use the main river channel to move around and really remember the areas that they were born. So they're going to be moving in areas that they were previously born at and previously spawned at, and this is how these big bass kind of work. They've got their areas that they like to be in, and this is one way to track them. So the first place they're going to be moving around is the main river channel, main lake, and as spring goes on, they're going to be moving farther back into the secondaries and backs of coves to spawn. This isn't always true. This is a pure generalization of the broad overview of most bass, guys. So there's several studies that prove this, that they start moving back, whether it's way back in a cut or just kind of off the main lake in some shallower bays. But the ledge is the first place they're going to go. A lot of the times in normal conditions, regular barometric pressure, let's say everything steadied out, it's going to be a partly cloudy day, mild wind. A lot of the time, these fish are going to be moving very very center to that ledge. So they're going to be close, moving along the ledge, moving around, looking for bait. Let's actually draw some bait here. Let's draw bait in pink. And, you know, a lot of the bait is going to be a little higher in the water column as the water heats up. You know, the sun's really beating down. The air temps are starting to steady out. So that bait is going to be, let's say, around the high to mid water column. Not super low, but just high enough for those bass to be active. A lot of those times, these bass are going to come up on top of the ledge. If it's a submerged ledge, they're going to come up and feed on the ledge, or they're going to feed up right through the bait balls, just like this. This is one easy way to target fish, especially if that ledge isn't, you know, it tops out at around 5 to 6 to 7 foot of water, guys. You can throw a multitude of different baits. One of my favorites is going to be a +1 diving jerk bait. This is just such an easy bait to fish. Grab you some 12, 10, 8-pound line, a 6'6" to 6'10", 6'11" rod, a medium rod that has a good parabolic bend, and throw a little deep diving jerk bait, guys. This is the Megabass Vision 110 Junior +1. Super amazing. We've got Provoke DDs by 6 cents. We've got a couple other deeper diving jerk baits like regular +1s that you can choose from. So they're very easy to fish. Again, lighter line, more limber rod. Throw it out there, and one of the easiest cadences with a jerk bait is just give it 2 hits. 1, 2, let it pause. 1, 2, let it pause. 1, 2, let it pause. And if they're not eating that, guys, switch up the retrieve. Switch up the cadence. Maybe 3 hits, pause, 2 hits, 3 hits, 2 hits. It all depends on that day. If the wind's blowing really hard, I like to move it a lot faster. It really covers up the sense of the boat, and it also covers up a lot, so you can move it a lot faster and get more of a reaction bite when that wind's blowing, because that bait is moving around, chasing the phytoplankton and all that they're eating. So you want to match that style that the bait's doing, right? So more wind, generally go more erratic. Less wind, I usually have longer pauses in there, and I might even go to just a normal build jerkbait, like a regular Vision 110, a regular Provoke X, a 106 Provoke, any of the non-deep divers, especially when the wind's not super high. Those fish, especially in high barometric pressure, those fish will either go very high in the water column at the very tip top, or they'll sink down underneath the bottom part of this ledge, and that's where a Carolina rig or a big jig or a Texas rig can come in very handy. Now, in the springtime, this is one thing I do want to mention, guys. A lot of the times in the springtime, these fish are looking for bigger class meals. Let's say your 6 to 7, 8, 9, 10-inch gizzard shad, or some good-sized threadfin. Now, this isn't always the case. If you have like herring or alewife or anything else like that in your lakes, be mindful of that. You know, if their main forage is herring, those fish are going to more than likely be more nomadic. They're going to be moving a lot more, so be on the lookout for those areas that are key places for them to stop, like main lake points. And that's the second piece of structure we're going to be looking at here, guys. So a main lake point, it's going to be a tapering point. It's going to start right at the bank and kind of work its way down, guys. Main lake points are one of the top producing areas for most anglers all throughout the year. No matter what time of the year it is, summer, spring, fall, and winter, guys, they're going to be around main lake points, especially if you have the right habitat on it. Let's say you might have some artificial brush piles set out, or natural brush piles set out on the point. You can have very good chunk rock that the fish like to get in when it gets real hot or real cold, to use as structure and cover, guys. So a lot of the time, depending on, this is the most variable one, right? Because if it's really warm in the spring, in the pre-spawn, they're going to get up really shallow, sun themselves, look for bait up shallow, because that's where they're comfortable hunting. If it's a very like, let's say post-fronty day or rainy, they're going to get a little bit lower just to stay comfortable to where they're not feeling a huge shift in the water temperature, the wind's not blowing them around, and sometimes they'll get out very, very deep out here, and you can really look out with your forward-facing sonar and just see these little flames on like a Garmin, kind of like that. You see little flames coming up off of them. I'll put some of my live scope footage here, based off like what we're talking about, so you can see with your own eyes kind of what I'm looking for on forward-facing sonar, guys. So, main lake points, secondary points are always high percentage areas to hit, and it's always one of the first places I check in my lakes. If I don't see anything on the main lake points, I start moving back into the secondaries, and if I don't see them on the secondaries, I look for specific banks that might have a more tapering 45-degree bank, which is also just an amazing place to look. I know I have some footage of those 45-degree banks that I look for in the pre-spawn. So some great lures to use for points, guys. One of my favorites, again, the jerkbait. It is a just fish catching machine. Another one, guys, is going to be the burrito, and I am really focusing these baits on catching the biggest fish you can catch in these areas. Something off, I guess off, not super common, right? Everyone can throw a jig, Carolina rig, Texas rig, anything like that, drag a drop shot, right? But we're going for the biggest fish in the area. A 5-inch burrito is extremely, extremely deadly in the pre-spawn and all year round, really, just because it's a bigger class meal. A lot of people aren't throwing them for whatever reason. It is very similar. You can drag this on the bottom like a jig. You can just swim it, and it is very, very easy to see on forward-facing sonar if you're using it, guys. But if you aren't, don't even worry. Don't sweat it, because you throw it out there, let it sink down, you just start winding it, and you're going to feel the thud. Just wham! Take the rod out of your hand, you set the hook, you get that fish in, guys. My hookup to land ratio on these guys is 100%. The only time I've actually lost a fish on the burrito is it broke my line because I was using 17-pound line, and I hadn't changed it in quite a while. Now, on the 5-inch burrito, 17-pound line is really the high end of what I like to use. I mean, 15-pound line, you can get away with that for sure. The 6-inch one, I like to stay at 17, but I mean, you can throw really, really heavy line. It doesn't really matter too much. Most of the time, if your fish are getting a lot of pressure on the body of water that you're at, or you might want to consider going to a lower line diameter, and don't even be afraid to throw braid, right? I hate to lose these guys for 36, 37 bucks for this 5-inch here. I would hate to lose it. So, be mindful of that. Another great one, of course, every spot on here. If you're using forward-facing sonar, you know the power of an A-rig. They just absolutely love these things. The A-rig is super, super deadly. My favorite one right now is the Shane's Baits Mini Blades of Glory. This thing is super awesome. It's got 4 blades, and it is a small package, guys. It is very, very small. And I can really pinpoint those fish. The more you can pinpoint your fish, guys, the more successful you're going to be, especially with the forward-facing sonar. Of course, you can throw these down the points. If you're bank fishing, guys, you drag them up the points. Just make sure to have lighter jig heads on. Just make it to where it slow sinks down there, and you wind it in, speed up your retrieve, and it's going to climb up perfectly for you. So I like to use the little worm bar, little swimmers, little Kitech swing impacts work great on here. The Kitech Easy Shiners are another great option, and what's great about these is he has replacement arms for you that you can actually buy that are very, very cheap, affordable, if you do have any of the arms break. I've never broken any arms on this mini blades, on the Dominator, or the Money Ball, so that just speaks highly of the Shane's Baits Mini Blades of Glory and all the stuff in their product line there. Shameless plug. I have caught two bags over 30 so far. I've caught numerous 8-pounders, 6-pounders, and 7-pounders on it this year. And last year, the Dominator was my big one. I caught so many fish over 8 pounds, 9 pounds. Almost had that 10-pound mark on the A-rig. It is such a fun bite, guys. But you drag it right off the ledge, drag it down the point, up the point. Doesn't really matter. Just kind of see what your fish want to set up on. Now, one of the more crucial areas to have forward-facing sonar is going to be your timber, your brush piles right down here. So I drew up like a little tree, like if you're fishing Ray Roberts or East Texas, somewhere where you've got a lot of timber, like Fork or something. Forward-facing sonar is huge. When the Elite Series was there, fishing Lake Fork, guys, the timber was such a huge player for those guys with forward-facing sonar, especially the Japanese anglers, Takumi Ito, and a lot of those other guys were using this forward-facing sonar technology back when it was brand new, and they were already using it to throw their little fuzzy dice or drop shots or crankbaits in these trees and get those fish to react. Now, one of the easiest places these fish will set up is going to be, especially in the early spring, they will most of the time set up in the deepest, darkest places of those brush piles to go out and feed and ambush the bait that swims by. So in this tree here, that bass might be sitting right on the apex of that tree, sitting inside the scraggly parts, hard to get, and maybe sometimes like right under the tree. It really just depends. Brush piles are the same way. They're going to sit in the brush pile, they're going to sit right under the brush pile, kind of like this. Some might get on top, roam around the brush pile. It really just depends. If it's on an area like a man lake point, let's say this brush is on a man lake point, they're probably going to be moving around a lot more. If you've got it right off a ledge, on top of a ledge, they're probably going to be sticking to it a lot more, right? So your bait generally going to be, again, middle of the water column. Some might get a little lower in there. And these are like the high ticket items right here. When the bait's lower, in that lower part of the structure that they're in, guys, these ones are getting eaten first. They're not going to go all the way out of the tree or whatever they're in to go eat the other food. So same thing like this, bait's kind of middle of the water column. Some might get down here at the bottom. And those fish, just pick them off. It's an easy buffet for them. The last 8-pounder that I caught, guys, was already starting to get some eggs in her. Super healthy, super fat. I think it was like 23.5-inch fish, and she was just over 8 pounds. And that was super awesome. Caught it on the Mini Blades of Glory here. When you get these fish here that are typically around the brush, if you do see fish like this, deep diving jerkbait, A-rig, burrito, even sinking down like a glide bait, guys, I know you probably watch Milliken do it all the time, especially in the summertime when those fish get really active in the brush, but in the springtime it is such a slept on thing. Throwing a glide bait, like an 8-inch glide, through the trees there, add some lead tape. If your bait has a tuning chamber in there, add some lead in there. And, I mean, you can get some mega bites on some glide baits. So this one here is the Zimmer glide baits, guys. 8-inch Gen 2 instigator here. It is a very good hybrid style glide to where it slow glides extremely well, and you can fish it very fast. You have the option to chop it a lot faster if you add a split ring or you add a clip to the front here. It opens up the action a ton and allows you to fish this very variably through the water column. So Zimmer glide baits is a great one. Another great glide bait for y'all is going to be something like the Clutch OG glide. Super amazing, do it all glide bait, guys. And another one new to the store here is going to be the Nessie. We've got them in the 5, 7, and 9. You can sink these down. It's a little bit harder. These are supposed to be fished around docks and stuff, which is another great piece of structure or cover that fish can get on in the pre-spawn. Ambush bait very easily. Stick in there until they want to move up to the bank to spawn. So, the Nessie like this, soft glide baits like the Grow Design Works is going to be great for points as well. High ticket item, big bait, big fish, easy fishing, right? So back to the structure we've got here on the trees, the brush, the A-rig, guys. For me, I have caught so many fish just working around the brush piles, sticking it on their heads, drawing them out. A lot of the times they will chase your bait for a little bit and then hammer it once it starts getting away from them. So if you've got shallower brush, guys, let's say that 6 to 10 foot of water, plus 1 jerkbait again, one of my go-tos. If they're really active and sticking above the brush, kind of like this fish here, normal jerkbait, 110, Jackal re-range, Strike King 300. Those are all great options to get those fish to react. And a lot of the fish in the springtime, the pre-spawn time, are very reactive. Once they can see the bait, and this is one big thing too, before I say that, water clarity is a major key factor in locating active fish that want to eat your baits, right? So if you watch the Bass Pro Tour, you kept up with that. Dustin Connell won stage 1 at Toledo Bend. One of his biggest keys to finding active fish was finding the water that was clear enough for them to efficiently hunt down their targets. Now, of course, they're using forward-facing sonar, using the freeloader, the Rapala freeloader, and a new bait coming out called the mooch minnow, but it doesn't really matter. Anything shad profile on like a Demiki rig style head or something like that, where they're dropping it on their heads, guys, as long as that fish can see it and around 1 to 2 foot visibility, they're gonna go eat it because they're very opportunistic. You stick it close to them, they want to eat it. That's just how their brains are wired in the springtime, pre-spawn time, because they have to fatten up for laying their eggs and going through the whole spawn process. Now, bass chasing your baits, a lot of the time, if you do find pressured fish, you're gonna have to tone down your baits. Like a Vision 110, I love starting at a Vision 110. It's got some light wire hooks on there, but this bait is, you can't deny the effectiveness of the 110. Jackal re-ranges, you can go for pure reaction bites where you can hit that as hard as you want. It's moving left, right. Same thing with like a Strike King, guys. Those are supposed to be fished hard, actively, and those fish will chase it. These here, when the bite gets tough and you got some pressure on your lakes, the Vision 110, you can barely twitch it with your wrist instead of your whole arm. Just twitch it with your wrist. 1, 2, let it pause. 1, 2, let it pause. And that's kind of what I start out with. I typically go towards clearer colors like MB Gizzard, or this is the Crystal Green Shad. Clear Laker's a great one. If I do find a little dirtier water, I'll go to like pure whites, like a 4K shad or something like that. Come on, there you go. But typically, I like to stay with clear colors. And the same thing with my A-rigs, guys. I'm not using bright chartreuse, not super vibrant pearl white colors. Typically going to be very natural approach to the forage that I want to imitate. And same thing with the burrito, guys. I'm not using super obnoxious colors. This is very just shad looking. It's got some gray, got some white on it. So moving on to the last piece of structure here, or the last, I guess, topographical map style thing that you're looking at. Something like not a saddle, I guess the opposite of a saddle. I guess it's more of a creek channel area here. So we got the this is more like a shallow creek channel, right? So a lot of the times your fish, if you find little drain areas, that's the word, it's drain. You find these areas here in the backs of coves, you find them in flats and stuff, where the creek channel does make its way through, snakes through, you'll find these fish just roaming out in the middle like this. Let's say it's, it's a good, decent sized creek. It's not super wide or inexpansive. You look down this little flat and you see this little creek channel, a lot of those fish are gonna be sitting all up above it, right? Some might be, working up on the bank areas, but a lot of them are going to be sitting out in the middle, chasing bait, and this can be one of the easiest ways to catch fish, and one of the most fun ways that I know how to catch fish on a glide bait, like a hard glide, throw in a Nessie style bait, throw in, a Buca burrito, throw in almost literally anything. When they're up in the water column like this, on a creek channel area or a drain, guys, it can be lights out on really whatever you want to throw out there as long as it's moving. A crankbait, swim bait, a rig, a jerk bait, it doesn't really matter. This is one of the easiest ways to go out there and catch fish. If you can locate those ditch areas, the drain areas, they are typically extremely active. Now, the key is you got to have some bait in there. If there's no bait, they're not going to be actively chasing around that. And since it is like a ditch or a drain, guys, a lot of the time that bait is going to centralize around the deepest part of that water because they feel the safest. Bass like to be safe as well. They like to be around the structure areas, but they will go out there and they are extremely aggressive, moving fast, and wanting to eat because they don't have anything to stick around when they're over open water like this. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, it really helps if you leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below if you did enjoy it. Let me know if you picked any of these baits up that I'm throwing around. And I hope, again, you enjoyed it, guys. Make sure to pick up some Spro, Gook, and Fluorocarbon, brand new back in stock. We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.